Super Bowl 59 on the future of Travis Kelce. Look, last week he said, I've got a lot of football left in me, but then he pivoted to talking about his non-football interests, and they are growing and they are profitable. And people interpreted his comments as he's definitely coming back because he said 3 years from now, I'd like to still be playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. But when you look deeper at what he said, yeah, there's reason there to wonder what he's going to do. And then the reporting came out over the weekend that he's undecided on the future. There was an account from James Palmer of the night before the Super Bowl where Kelce was very emotional and some in the organization believed that it could indeed be his last game. And there's always that challenge, Devin. I mean, you went through it. When's the right time to walk away? Not everybody gets the Jerome Bettis, John Elway, Michael Strahan walk off into the sunset with a Super Bowl trophy tucked in your arm. That's a Hollywood ending. And if you're Kelce, do you believe that next year is going to be a better ending? You need to believe that the Chiefs can go back and win it next year, and you can have your walk off into the sunset moment. If that's one of the things you were trying to do, if you were thinking we'll win 3 in a row and then I'll be done and it's a perfect ending. Drop the curtain, drop the mic, off we go. If he's looking for that, I don't think I wouldn't be ready to assume it's coming next year. You can't write off the Chiefs, and they're going to be pissed off and determined, and they're going to hit free agency in the draft to try to get better. I get it. They're not going to go away. But right now, when you got to make your decision, I don't know that if it's a big factor for me to win a Super Bowl and then exit stage left, I don't know that I feel better about it this year than I would have felt last year.
Yeah, that's the issue. When you've had the career he's had as a player, that's one thing. But the amount of team success, it turns everything into, and they talk about it all the time, you play the season for one thing. You have a shot to be in the Super Bowl, and that's the only reason you play it. But the problem is, as you get older, it becomes harder each year to get through that season. So then you have it's worth it if we win the Super Bowl. And when you win, you kind of forget the grind of it all. And you're like, we're just going to do that again. And they did that the last 2 years. You win and you win again. And you're like, I'm going to keep going. You don't really even think about it. It's just you reset and you go. But as you get older, it's such a grind. And I think the unique thing for him is you have a brother who you're close with, who you've now watched play the game his whole career, have a Hall of Fame career, and now walk away. And depending on what Jason is telling him, when he asks Jason, hey, bro, how you doing? If he tells him, hey, man, I'm having a time of my life. This is fun, going to the games, doing this, doing that. That now starts to paint a picture that before was unclear. Yes, he has a lot of opportunities, but it's a little unclear of how you're going to feel, what exactly you're going to do. But now when you have somebody close to you and you can reach out to them and you can see what they're doing, you can have sit-downs, you can be in New Orleans with them as you're getting ready for the Super Bowl and they're working the Super Bowl. He's getting to see all of those different things that he might want to do when he's done. It just makes it a little bit more real. It's not, now you're not sitting here making a decision between football and the unknown. You're making a decision between football and a little bit of what you see your brother's lifestyle and what he's going through. And I think that's going to ultimately be what it comes down to as he sits there and he resets of what will I enjoy more? Do I still enjoy the grind of being Travis Kelce, the great tight end, every single year? Or now am I at this stage in life where I'm going to enjoy just hanging with my girlfriend and not thinking about if I go on tour with her or we go here, how am I going to work out? That becomes harder because as you get older, you can't, if you want to be honest, you can't do what he did this offseason as you get older. You can't be traveling around and doing all those different things. If you do, you got to have a full team. I think about when Brady used to travel. Alex Guerrera, his guy, his body guy and coach, used to travel with him. Brian Hoyer told me they went out to Montana one time. They go skiing. They're having a great time. They get back to the cabin. Alex starts working on Tom like it's a game. Like he just finished practice. He's working on him, getting the body back right. It's that type of attention to detail you have to have when you've had a long career and now you're climbing into your mid-30s, or if Tom did into his upper 30s to mid-40s. Like, you have to dedicate so much more time and energy to making sure football becomes your priority all year, off season, in season, and that you have to make a decision mentally if you want to do that or if you want to start pursuing some of those other opportunities.
Especially because he got so many other opportunities. I mean, if he asked Jason, his brother who retired after the 2023 season, how you're doing, Jason's response will be, well, you know how I'm doing because we got a $100 million deal for a podcast we do once a week. A $100 million deal with Amazon for a podcast they do once a week, for crying out loud. So he's already making more money off the field than he makes on the field. And he's been acting. He's involved in production, film, and TV side. He had some game show on Amazon. And, yeah, his football career is getting in the way of what's waiting for him next. And you mentioned traveling around with his girlfriend when she's on tour. If he asks her input after she got booed mercilessly during Super Bowl 59, she might have an opinion that is slightly stronger than it otherwise would have been. I've had enough of this, and you've had enough of this. Now let's go make a lot more money and not get injured. That's the other thing, too. If you've gotten yourself to your mid-30s, and it'll be 36 this year, where you can walk and you feel good overall and you don't think you're going to have ill effects of the grind. Remember when Robert Smith retired after the 2000 season, kind of surprisingly out of the blue. He had an 8-year NFL career. He retired because I want to be able to walk when I'm old. That's an admirable quality, because most guys aren't thinking 5 months down the road, much less 5 years down the road, much less 50 years down the road. They're not thinking about that. When you're 30, you're not thinking about how am I going to be living if I make it to 80, but that's a factor as well. So if I'm Travis Kelce, and Chiefs fans everywhere should be glad I'm not, because I wouldn't have made it out of the first practice to the first offseason workout. But, it's like, man, I've done everything I can do. Yeah, I would have liked to have gone out on a higher note, but if I come back for another year, I'm not willing to make the bet that it's going to be better than this year was.
Exactly.
All right.
Wow.
Oh, all right. I was thinking, man, you usually have more than that. If that's all he's got, I'll move on to the next topic. If you got more, I'll lay out and let you go.
No, but it is. Like, I mean, to me, there's nothing else to say. Like, especially each time you go back to play, when you've had the career he's had, you don't want to stick around to the point where it's just like, damn, man, remember when Travis Kelce was? Man, remember when Kelce could?
No.
Like, I hate when we watch players like that. And the run he had in the playoffs this year kind of put a stamp on the year of, we still saw flashes of Kelce, but it wasn't the normal week in and week out guy. And now if you come back mentally as an athlete, you start thinking about, damn, like, I might not be able to turn that back on in the playoffs again like I did this year. It just creates, it's a tough mental game you start playing with yourself of, man, I've always been able to play at this level. It's dropped a little bit. I don't want to fall off the cliff and just be kind of a shell of my old self.
And some would say, from Kelce's perspective, if you're thinking that much about it, you've basically already done it.
Yep.
Like, you don't get that far down the road and turn back and say, I'm going to make that commitment for one more year. I'm going to do all that stuff for one more year. Now, I don't know what you're more likely to regret and which is worse. It's probably worse to sign up for one more year and then at some point, once you're down the path, you say, why the hell did I do this? Yeah. Versus the regret of not continuing to play, because you're always going to have that first year where you didn't play football. You're always going to have that. And you're always going to think that first year, I could have done one more. I mean, I'm talking to a guy who just went through it. There's always going to be that first year. So it doesn't matter. You can play until you're 50. There's always going to be that first year. That's unavoidable. The thing you can avoid is the one extra year where you play and you're asking yourself, why the hell did I do this? Why am I doing this? Can we just get this thing over with? Why? So I feel like it's pointing toward him not playing, but, it's ultimately his decision, and clearly he's good enough to still play and start and contribute to the Chiefs. The other thing, too, we just assume that if Father Time is going to catch up, it's going to happen in the offseason. There's a chance it happens during the season.
Yep.
And you can't rule that out either. You feel great when August rolls around, but by the middle of October, you are cooked. And what are you going to do now? So my guess would be he's going to retire. I just think there's enough of that talk out there, but I have no idea. I have no inside information on this or any other thing some would say. But I just think that if you let yourself get too far down the path of I'm done, you're already done.
Yeah, to me, one of the keys is how fast does he go back into his normal offseason? Like, are we talking about in about 2 or 3 weeks he's back working out and doing the things that he normally does for the season? Because if he's not, like I think about my last year, I had to have a shoulder surgery. And I started to see Matthew Slater come in there, and he was working out. He was going through different routines, and I was just doing my shoulder rehab. And I was like, next week I'm gonna start working out. Next week would come and go. I was the next week, and it would come and go. And then it started to really set in that I just didn't have it anymore. I didn't have that urge. I didn't have that kind of running scared mentality of if I don't start now, other people are starting and they're gaining the edge on me. I have to get back and go. When you start to lose that to me is a point for any player of what you normally do and how you stay on top of your game. If you lose that edge and you start going into a year of like, damn, I usually start a month earlier. I usually start 3 weeks earlier. I'm a little behind and you're okay with that's not a good sign, because then you end up in what you just said. You're midway through the year or you're towards the end of the year and you're miserable because you're not playing the way you want. It's not going how you thought it would go. So to me, how fast he gets right back into the football mentality will be big to me, because if he goes and he's like, I'm going to take time to make this decision, he gets away from it, it's going to be hard to come back and think you're going to put your body through that grind after being on vacation, being away, and enjoying life and enjoying the career that you just had and just taking advantage of it. Is going to be hard to go backwards.
And one last point before we break. They've got that ridiculously popular New Heights podcast that they do once a week. If you are having an London, why did I hang around one more year type of a season, you don't want to have to put that out there for the world every single week. You don't want a real-time chronicle of how miserable you are. And are you going to be able to fake it for an hour every week and act like everything's fine even if you're miserable? I just think that becomes a factor. When this 1 hour a week has become a $100 million franchise, that's part of the analysis too. And I think it all just points to, I know if it was me, I'd say, let me go focus my talent, my effort, my time on this other thing that is ready to be a friggin' gold mine. It already is a gold mine. It's a better gold mine than my football salary is, and I don't get hit. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.